Should live now.
Okay, we are live streaming Dear Myrtle's CensusGenie on YouTube. Cousin Russ, let's start the recording now, if you please, on the Zoom side. Okay, Melinda, have you got it live? Can you see it on YouTube? Refresh your page. It'll come up. Quiet on the set. Can you see it now? Russ, can you see it?
It's on YouTube. It's live.
Okay. All righty. Then let people in the door and we will start. Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Welcome to Dear Myrtle's CensusGenie meetings. Now, most of us are in Zoom, but we are anticipating there will be spillover eventually as people hear about our nightly CensusGenie meetings for the next 2 weeks at least until we get the hang of all this. Yes, the census has been released. It's a very agile site, very easy to navigate. But there are a few sticky wickets. Now, here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to start with a very positive blog post from the legal genealogist about her experience. She calls it time travel with NARA. And she was able to get through to 4 different family groups in 4 different states, just using the National Archives website with their name search and their enumeration district capabilities. So, and I agree, that's what happened. But I want to hear from those of you who are here with me on the Zoom side. Turn on your mic or your webcam if you'd like to tell me how it worked for you. Let me start with you. Sherry, how did it go?
I thought it went really well. I was pleasantly surprised as an IT person that it was snappy and it was responsive. And I was most impressed with the indexing. Most of the things I tried were state, county, or EDs. And they just flew.
Yeah, I was very surprised. And I learned where my people were not because they were not in the enumeration district I expected them to be. And I did not find them in the name index yet. Probably because some of my names are very common. And I only had X amount of time to spend on it. But I was online at 12:01 refreshing my page, and Mr. Myrt sitting across from me in this same computer table got into NARA before I did, and he already found somebody. And then the cat had an accident. We had to take care of that, but too much information. All right, I hear you. I agree. The site didn't crash, and it worked remarkably well considering how many hundreds of thousands of names are there. Diana, I see that you've turned on your webcam, and so you probably have some comments. How was it looking for ancestry? Did you find anything?
It was awesome. I have about 40 people. I got through almost all of my priority 1 people. So I have my parents, Gary's parents, all of our grandparents, most of our great-grandparents, some of our aunts and uncles. I was having a blast. And I had addresses for most of them, but not all of them. I talked to my cousin today and said, do you know where you lived in 1950? Well, no, somewhere in Washington, D.C. Thanks a lot. But with that, I found her.
So that meant that you went, so that you specified location of Washington, D.C. and her name, but you didn't put in an enumeration district because you didn't know.
Correct.
An address to determine it. And then next to her name, you press that search button, that little blue button. And
it gave me several possibilities.
Yeah.
And one of them was the right one.
You need to mute, honey. Mr. Myrt's giving me an echo.
Good out
Okay.
here.
Okay. All right. So I'm getting it. Please turn down your volume. Watch me on Zoom, sweetie. Okay. So who else wants to talk here? Maria Capaldi, I see you there. Do you want to unmute your mic and tell us about your 1950 census research?
Sure. Yeah, I too was on at 12:01. I stayed up until about 2:20 a.m. and I can't
Oh my.
stay up late anymore. But anyway, yeah, my first try, I initially thought it was my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, and I was thrilled. So I started transcribing, and as I was transcribing it, it was my mom's brother and his family. So it was my cousin. And you know, so yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have much luck, but you know, I'll get there.
Okay. So if you want to make a comment, I noticed that you're going to a weak internet connection. So what we're going to have you do is, Diana, would you keep track to see if Maria wants to comment? She's going to keep her webcam off so she doesn't get disconnected. And that's why my webcam's off. It's there. I bothered to bring it, but anyway. Okay. Thank you, Diana, for letting me delegate to you. Okay. Type in the chat if you don't want to. Yeah, if you turn on your webcam, you will be in line automatically. So, hi, Patricia Jackson. Did you want to tell us about your experience? Then we'll do Ann Staley next.
Sure.
Okay.
I went to bed. I had my iPad, and I didn't bother to look up my ED for where I lived in 1950. So I just browsed through the descriptions in the county until I found the one I thought it was, and put in my dad's surname, and there we were. It was very easy.
Okay, so that's interesting that you browse through the descriptions of the enumeration districts, and they were ringing a bell. In other words, it included the street. Remember,
No,
the enumeration descriptions
this was
talk
rural.
about the bordering. Say again?
This was rural.
Oh, it was rural. Okay, that makes sense.
No address. We were in R1 or something. So
yeah.
I just looked at my township in the county. There were like 3 EDs for the township, and I picked the one that looked likely, and I had guessed right. So I found it almost right away.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Okay, that makes sense.
I want to make a comment on rural. My parents and my grandparents lived on the same farm. There were 9 pages apart in the ED.
Whoa.
And I did it by township like you did, but they were 9 pages apart in the ED, and they were on the same farm.
The enumerator probably started with 1 and went around the block the other way.
I could not, because it's rural, I couldn't tell because I looked for the neighbors, and the neighbors weren't there, but I kept looking, and it wouldn't search, but I you're supposed to look a page before and a page after. While I went through the whole ED, and there were 9 pages apart.
Okay, so I think what's happening in the chat is that Darlene Tsai wants to get in line, but doesn't want to turn on her webcam. So raise your hand. That's down there under reactions, and it will bring you up so that I can get you in line.
And
okay.
I got YouTube covered. There are 2 people watching. I'd be
on
one
the
of
YouTube.
them.
Okay, so thank you for letting us know about your rural district, enumeration district guessing. I'm glad you got it on the first guess. And we're now ready to go to Ann, and then we'll go to Sarah. So Ann, how was it for you?
Awesome. I didn't think I was going to be this excited, but I got on, like, it came on at 12:01. I was
Mhm.
doing other stuff. So
Yeah.
I got on, I found myself as a 2-year-old, and I was on the supplemental line.
You were?
Yes.
Wow.
Now, if it had been 2 more down, my dad would have been on the supplemental line and I would have gotten a whole lot more information. But, you know, as a 2-year-old, they didn't.
They didn't ask you. You didn't have much to say about it. I hear you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but when I looked and I found my parents and I, my mom's mom was supposed to be right above, and I could see coming from the right hand side on the block, Miss Jeannie, the McEntees, and then that was supposed to be my grandmother, and she was not there. But I found her on another page further down, and so it's sort of like what cousin Russ said. I mean, she was supposed to be right there. I mean, she was in the middle of the block, you know. So yeah, but I managed to find about 18. I was on the archives website, and I was really, really surprised. They did a really good job. I had no problems. The internet stayed up. They didn't crash. I didn't get any error messages, nothing. It was really good.
That was a completely different experience back in 1940.
Yep.
When it was released 10 years ago.
Yes.
Thank you, Anne, for sharing that. Okay, Sarah, and then Mama Lisa, did you want to talk or are you just listening, dear?
Did you get Darlene?
She'll be next. Okay. Oh, I was going to do Darlene. Let's do Sarah, Darlene, and then Mama Lisa.
Okay, I should go then.
Yes, your turn.
Okay, so I was searching for me also, well, my family, but it was the first census I was in. We lived in one of those new developments built after the war. And when I got the ED map, the street was not on it. And so it was interesting to go to Google and see how the street extended. And it was right on the border where I could imagine my house was using Google. Right on the border between 2 EDs. And so I didn't know which one to search. So I tried the indexing first, and my name, Anne, Sarah Ann, my mother's name, my father's name, the last name Scribner, none of it came up for any part of it. So I thought I was having a moment thinking, oh no, what if the street got missed because it was built so recently? But what actually happened was, I guess they just didn't pick it up, because I found there were 116 pages in the enumeration district I thought I was in. So I just started going through them. And when I got to 80, there we were. And I too was on the sample line. But one nice thing about that was it said I had lived in the same house a year ago, and I wanted to be sure when we moved into that house, because I knew they bought it in April 48. And so that gave me another little bit of a window that we were in that house at least a year in 49. So
a year before. Yeah.
But I was very demoralized by the artificial intelligence. I don't know if it's Berks County, Pennsylvania. I don't know what it is, but some of the things that were coming up, like even not at home was being rendered, not at Doomum, it just, I realized it's artificial, but I just thought, oh my God, they're not catching anything. They didn't catch Scribner at all. Not at all.
Yeah, so they didn't catch my maiden name.
Did you fix it? Did you fix it?
I did. I did the whole page. Yeah, I just went in and fixed the page.
Yeah, that's one nice thing, is that available now, you as a citizen or a person can go in there and make the corrections using that interface, which we will be discussing how to do that, probably just not tonight. Thank you very much.
One other thing I wanted to say, when I put the last thing in, I noticed they said they were going to allow it was a large number, up to 8 different corrections. So they're not, if mine doesn't agree with somebody else who looks at that, they're going to keep them both. See what I'm saying? So it's an interesting, they're not going to do like Family Search does, where they pick one and say, this is the authoritative one. They might have, my Scribner might be spelled 3 or 4 different ways. So.
Well, they do that on Ancestry now, though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. How does Ancestry do it?
Ancestry will put brackets.
It's like Ancestry.
They put brackets and Myrt, are you here? Myrt? Darlene. Darlene, can you, go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know how much you want to hear, or you want to hear the challenges, or I'll just stop when you tell me to.
Hold on 1 second. Myrt is coming back, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay, so
Go
that's
ahead,
why
go ahead, Darlene. Go ahead.
Okay, my plan went out the window. I got sleepy about 8 o'clock and went to bed thinking I'd take a nap and get back up. That didn't happen. So this morning, late this morning, I got started, but I only did 2 pages today. The search found nothing for me. And I thought it was odd at first. I was on the NARA page and did the search for the ED I knew existed because Steve Moore's One Step showed me, but it showed me a conflicting ED. But then that wasn't even the right one. But then
was it one that had a B or C or D after it?
No.
It was?
No.
Okay.
Was it a big town, big city?
Youngstown, Ohio.
That might be an ABC issue.
Yeah.
Well, I did eventually find it. I just don't know. The search didn't work at first, but then I noticed later it worked different. I thought it was funny. So the ED was 100-70, but the NARA search was showing me first as 50-1, etc. So I don't know what happened with that. So I did 1 page on Youngstown, and then I went to Pittsburgh and found 1 page. On the Youngstown page, I did do one of those boo-boos like the lady before me said, and it kept them both because I accidentally put somebody else on my aunt's line, thinking misreading the page, thinking 23 was 28.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I corrected it, it kept both line entries I had for 28, which was the man accidentally, and then my aunt. And I screenshot that if you want to see it. I don't know if I can.
Well, I trust you. It is important that you help correct where you run across a mistake on any website.
Right.
But they've provided that. And maybe we should talk again. I'm trying to take notes, but I got booted off. Maybe we should talk again about the process for actually correcting a page. So if one of you regulars is doing research and you find one where you had to correct it, don't correct it yet, so we can do it live. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That sounds good. All right. So thank you, Darlene. Now
Diana has her hand raised.
I do see that. Miss Diana?
I just wanted to say that one of the things I found when the ED doesn't appear to be there, I found it made a difference if I put in the state and county and then put in the name and then went to the ED, it didn't find it. But if I put in the state and county and the ED said find it, then went back and put in the name, it worked fine.
That happened to me. I think I saw your post because I had been doing the same thing. I think it is consistent that you want to put select the state, select the county, enter the ED, although the window has the name and ED reversed, but you want to put the ED second or third and then the name.
Yeah, and then it worked great.
Perfect.
Yeah, the description of the county and city is in that order, but when you type in after you've done the state one and you're ready to now put in the county and the city, don't do it the format that it has as a placeholder. Put it city and comma county, the opposite.
And I couldn't get it to take anything other than picking it from the list.
There was a couple. There was a couple I picked from all the towns except one town for me that I looked at today, and that is because I couldn't find where I expected it. It was where there is a county, comma, city in their drop-down menu. It happened that I was looking for Trenton, New Jersey, which is in Mercer County, but it has two different EDs.
You're talking about the NARA website?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And I didn't see it that way. If I search for King, comma, Seattle, it didn't work. I had to type in Seattle, comma, King.
My suggestion, and it worked for me, and I think Diana's will back it up, is don't search. Use the drop-down menu, but watch the drop-down menu for some towns, cities like Trenton. So I didn't do any searching. I used the drop-down menu.
All right.
The only one that I saw that I thought was odd, I was working in Iowa. And if I was looking for Des Moines and went to the D's, there were two Des Moines. Well, that makes sense because there's Des Moines County and Des Moines City. And so with Des Moines City, it had Des Moines, comma, Polk, which is the county. So that was the only time that I saw cities available.
Okay.
Darlene has her hand raised again.
Well, but I promised Lisa I would take her next. So we have an international audience. Lisa, direct from Madagascar. What time is it there?
It's 4:20 a.m. on Saturday. And so I normally get up to feed the puppies about 5. So I just got up and fed them at 4 so that by the time they were finished eating, because I'm still bottle feeding these last 2 puppies, then I'd be free. So
and they are so cute.
They are.
Oh my God. When I lose one, it breaks my heart, but then I have so many others that give me so much joy that, it's this roller coaster ride. So,
all right. So what happened when you looked in the census?
Okay. So I started with the ancestry to get the ED from my parents who were both at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor at the time. Mm-hmm. So then I went back to the NARA site. And like Russ said, I used the drop-down menu, and there were 2 Ann Arbor, comma, Washtenaw, comma, Michigan listed. I don't know why because Ann Arbor is not a county, it's just a city, but there were 2 listed in the drop-down. So I used the first one, and when I put in the ED and the name, I got no results. So I took the name out, just went back to the ED, and luckily that ED only had, I think, 15 pages. And they were on page 14. So I was
of course.
But when I took the ED out and just did search by name, I put like Edith Lee, it gave me every Edith. So it's even though it says first name first, last name last, it got stuck on the first name. Yes. And I would have preferred to have all the Lees instead of all the Ediths. And I didn't bother to play around to reverse it because, once I found them, I, like the rest of you, was very impressed with how well this worked as compared to 1940. Mm-hmm. I expected it to be a crap show, and it was painless. I mean, there's some quirks to it for sure, and we're finding out a lot of it as we go along. But man, they hit it out the park. They did a great job.
And that is the word for Mama Lisa. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, my darling. I'll let you go.
Okay, thank you. All right, Darlene, you have your hand raised, and then we're going to do a special something with Bernard. He's going to be up next.
Okay, I'll be brief.
Sure.
So that just like the lady said, and if I sounded like I was complaining, I apologize because I enjoyed the process, even though I only did 2 pages. It only took me over an hour to do the first one because I was conversing with my cousins at the same time. So I got that one transcribed, but kind of like what Russ said about the searching for the ED in the city. That's how it messed up the first time, is because I did the state and then the county, but when I put in the city, it didn't find it. That's where I had the 50 dash. But when I put Youngstown, Mahoning, which is the county, that's where it found the correct ED.
Perfect. Okay. So, you know what this is reminding me of? Thank you, Darlene. That makes sense what you're saying now that it's starting to sink in. What I like about this, and I think I can lower your hand for you. I did. Melinda's saying that almost everyone is impressed with the release of this. And I think it's because, well, some of us are so old, we could remember having to look on microfilm and just scroll. And clicking was quick and easy. And I know that Mama Lisa has a technology background, and so do you, Sherry, and Cousin Russ. In fact, a lot of people in the room do, now that I look at it. And we were expecting major snafus, and I don't know. The one thing I want to do, and we have some newbies here, some names that on the list here are regulars that have been following us for the past year, where we've discussed the big question. Have you noticed how many people on Facebook are asking, how do you find out the ED? What is an ED? What is an enumeration district? And so Bernard had agreed, and let me go ahead and start screen sharing, and I'll turn it over to you. What Bernard is going to do for us is do a comparison of looking up a locality on Ancestry's enumeration district finder and on stevemorse.org one-step unified tool. Go ahead, Bernard. We need to have you share your screen.
I'm trying to get that screen to come up. I had it staged.
Okay, we'll get there.
You know, they say the more important the audience, the more likely something will go wrong.
Of course. But and this actually, it was recorded and many people will be looking at it. So no pressure.
It worked in rehearsal, right?
Yeah, it sure did. It's starting to come in, and now we're seeing your program.
Seeing the program, but we're not getting the
So you want to switch screens. There you go.
Got
Perfect.
it? Great.
Yep,
Okay.
you got it. No problem.
Yeah, so I just thought when we were talking Wednesday night, and I was first learning about the Ancestry's enumeration district finder, to just do a quick look both ways. So I'm going to show two examples. One, an urban street address. And this is in fact where I was living on the 1st of April, 1950. We moved on July 13th. So it's not the house I remember growing up in, but we used to go back to the neighborhood and people would point it out to me. So of course, the first thing we always need to do is get an address wherever you can find one. Here's a couple cases for my dad. The Library of Congress has phone books, and also the draft card. This is one example, and I've heard other people say they've seen multiple addresses. You can see he lived on Amway when he registered, and then the whole family moved, and he married my mother, and they end up there on Alabama Avenue. And then Pennsylvania's case, and there's a couple other states, they gave a bonus to World War II veterans, and most of those people, you can see the date, filled them out in 1950. So there we have the address. So if I want to look for that on the Steve Morse and Joel Weintraub site, you know, you go in and it's all drop-down menus. You pick the state, the county, the town, which happened to be there. You type in the number of the address and then drop down the streets that are in that locality. Thank you to the volunteers who did that. And I end up with 2 enumeration districts. So how's the one I want? Which one is it? Well, they also show you can go to a Google map and enter cross streets. So I did that. There's our 1504 Alabama Avenue, and the cross streets there are Dell, Kelton, and Annapolis. And there is the house on Street View, which is the first way I found the address.
He recognized it from all the times visiting relatives after you'd already moved out of that house.
Yeah, we used to go back always 4th of July, and my parents would point out, yeah, that's the house, but what was the address? Well, Street View, I can find it. So I put in those cross streets, Dell, and then Kelton, and then Annapolis, and now I'm down to 1 enumeration district. So good. It got me to that point with a little bit of clicking. and a little bit of typing. Now, of course, the other way you can work is from the maps. And this is the map for Dormont. Now, anytime in genealogy, when you get to a record, what the first thing you do, you look at the front of the book and the back of the book, the first part of the microfilm and the last part of the microfilm. You get a map, you look at the legends, and in particular, this case, which way is north? North is down.
Down. I was wondering if it was my eyesight since I had my cataract surgery, but that's crazy.
No,
okay.
That's good, Bert. That shows you're a good genealogist. You know to look for those things. This will be a difference between the Steve Morse site and what we'll see on Ancestry. So if I zoom in this part by the old Scotch tape, and there you can see is that enumeration district upside down because the map has north down. And I put the little arrow there. You can see that was the house.
And he zoomed in, Russ. I love it when people zoom in.
Yes. And you can do that from the Steve Morse site to the point you can see the addresses and the streets. I'll show you in a minute. The Ancestry doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Okay. So here's Ancestry's Census District Finder. And again, you have to have either a subscription or you set up a free account. Doesn't cost anything. It's all available. And you go in, and this is that first interface, and all these circles are just distracting to me. They say you can zoom in, but I'm typing the address, and notice Ancestry autocomplete. So I didn't have to say Pennsylvania, Allegheny, Dormont. I just said 1504 Alabama Avenue, Dormont, and it's using that. Now, the trick is that's a current address. A 2020 address, if the street's been renamed or renumbered, Ancestry is going to have the current address, won't have the old one. So that's one thing to watch out for.
I want to interject here. That has happened frequently just with my ancestral research. Salt Lake moved the west side things over because of Main Street. And in Iowa, Knoxville, Iowa, the only way I could determine what the actual ancient street number would have been was because I looked at a Sanborn fire map, because I recognized that a block and a half away to the real north was a church with a steeple on it. And I figured a Sanborn fire map might have it, and sure enough, it did. So I could figure it out. So that concept of a street being renamed or renumbered, or if it's a street that was added, like Sarah had to deal with, where it was right on the border, you got to take those things into account. Okay, now back to you, Bernard.
Let me just interject a comment from Ann, who said my street number was different in 1950 than it was a few years later. So street numbers change.
Right.
Just among our group of people here, we're witnessing that that's true. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and we had the case. I actually put in the address of where I grew up, where we moved in 1950, and Ancestry tried to put me in the enumeration district, and it's sort of the street and the house aren't there in 1950. Sorry. So that's a thing to watch as well. Okay. So then I go in and I've done my Alabama Avenue, Dormont, and it pops this up. And some people have said, wait a minute, all these different maps, what is it? Well, if you look over there on the right, there's a little box of layers. And then this box comes up and you can click. So the one I want that's on top there, the Dormont, Allegheny County, and that's the one that's sort of not grayed out at all. And then I start to go in, and see on the left, it's told me it's 2213. I typed the one in on the map. Look what they did to the map. They turned it back up so the north was sort of kind of up on Ancestry. That's not the case on the original map. So that's one thing to watch for. That's a benefit. But this is as far as you can zoom in on Ancestry. And I can't read the street names. I can't read the numbers. So I got to sort of believe, that's it, or go and get the map somewhere else.
Wow. I want to say something here before I start the rural address thing. In big cities, there are sometimes inside streets. And you wouldn't be able to see what those inside streets are at Ancestry. You can on Steve Morse One Step website because Joel Weintraub had his volunteers zoom in on remember, he found a lot of missing census maps, enumeration district maps. So he tried to pull together a bunch of as close to 1950 maps for these larger cities, so that they could figure out what the inside streets might be. Like there might be, the 4 outside streets or just the one your ancestors on, but what if part of it, to help narrow it down, is on the little cul-de-sac where there's a couple of neighbors' homes who are behind other people's homes, and that's a different street name. Have you seen it where people access their garages through an alley and then there's a house there instead of a garage, and the alley is then given a name? So there's peculiar things like that you can't see because you can't zoom in, but eventually they'll probably fix it. Okay. Now on to rural. We've had some experience with that. Let's see.
And the other thing I'll mention, I put in the 1504 and on the Steve Morse, because that Alabama Avenue extends through more than one enumeration district, but Ancestry zoomed in on the correct one. So if it's geo-referenced and nothing's changed, then it gets the right place.
Good point.
Now we look at a rural address. This is my Aunt Margaret and my Uncle George, my dad's younger brother. And of course, there I found a case where I have the city directory. Ancestry was sort of interesting for the 1950 Pittsburgh city directory, looking for my dad, who was on 2 microfilms. Ancestry only has the first half of the alphabet, doesn't have the M. Meissner's. And I look at 1951, it has the second half of the alphabet, but we'd moved. So there we are, RD2 Latrobe, home of Arnold Palmer and the others. Now, here is another way to find an address. Everybody focuses on, look at 1950. You got to be near 1950. This is 12 years later. This is the death notice of my uncle, but it points out where he is. Now it tells me St. Mary's Hill, and it says he's lived in Unity Township for 14 years, which means in 1950, he was in Unity Township.
Bravo.
So look where you can find any sort of record. Okay, so where are we? Where the heck is Unity Township? There's Latrobe. There you can see Unity Township, and it's just outside of Latrobe. I actually knew the farm on which they lived. And there we see, there's Latrobe. There's St. Mary's Road. There's their farm, all those trees. That's all their area. And another key thing that sort of helps to find it a bit, the little village just down to the south is called Lloydsville. Okay, and I know exactly where their RD box is. That's where the little red circle is. So now I go into Ancestry and say RD2 Latrobe, and it says, I've got something for you. And I said, okay, that's great. What have you got? 65 364, which is way down there on the bottom of the map. Well, sorry, they're up in 65 361. So now there are some places you can find rural delivery maps. Tennessee has a lot online. Pennsylvania doesn't. So the RD didn't really get me anywhere near the right place. So then I try Unity Township, and it gets me 1 off. Now that's all in Unity Township. It's a big area, but why I picked that one particular enumeration district, I have no idea. Turns out in this case, it's not the correct one. And then see, there's that little Lloydsville. So they said, well, if I type in Lloydsville, it says, okay, yeah, it does. Lloydsville, Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. And it picks.
It's where the blue is?
It picks that part there where it suggests, and I say, it's right there on that. So how it comes up with that one, I don't have a clue. So like I say, with rural, it's a little bit trickier. You really want to be able to pin the location on the map. So if you're doing township range section in the mid part of the country, that should be easy. But, meets and bounds where we have in Pennsylvania, not too well. So it works well, particularly if you have an exact address. And as we said, you haven't named or renumbered the street. That the Morse Weintraub one lets you enter the cross streets to zoom in on the map. And with rural areas, maybe it might be better to work with maps, or we had a couple of people, if you knew well enough the descriptions. In my case, it's all state route 327 and State Route 24. And I'm going, where the heck is this? Unless you already know the area. So
wow,
that's my story.
Wow, you have some great examples there to deal with.
Yes. And by the way, I got into that numeration district, looked for my Uncle George, my Aunt Margaret, my cousin Craig, and I went twice through all the pages. It doesn't have them there. And I know they're there. They were there. And doing the searches for either Meissner or George in that area, or looking in Unity Township, I haven't found it for the cases where it's come up with a match.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Everybody's saying, great job. This is excellent. What does RD stand for? Can you tell Leslie that, please?
It's rural, which is really rural free delivery, which was a way that when you had in the cities, people got mail delivered to their address. In the country, in many cases, you had to go to town to the mailbox to pick it up. But with rural free delivery, they would deliver, they'd put a box, at your lane or near your house. And somebody would come around, either in the old days, I guess, horseback, and now with a vehicle of one sort or another, and puts it there at the end of your lane or wherever your mailbox might be. Sometimes you'll see a whole flock of mailboxes. Although right now, here I am outside Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, and at the end of my driveway is a box with 12 mailboxes on it. Fortunately, mine is right there. So, but that was the idea. And like I say, there are a few places you can actually see the routes. Otherwise, you may have to find another way to figure out exactly where in the county you want to look to put that pin in the map.
Right. And it helped that you knew exactly the farm because you'd been there, you knew about it. What do they grow on a farm that has all trees? And they didn't, Christmas trees?
No, it was not a working farm as such. That the new part of the house was built in 1850, and my uncle had to dig the cellar for that. The old part was around Revolutionary War times. It has horsehair in the plaster, huge oak beams. So it had been a working farm. I remember when there was a barn and a pigsty. They're both now gone, as are my aunt and uncle. But,
so rural doesn't mean it has to be a farm, folks. It could just be that the person had a lot of property and it wasn't a city street where it had a normal post office situation with a regular house address. Very intriguing. All right. Now, Diane, well, first of all, Bernard, I have said your name perfectly 100% of the time tonight. So I'm learning. Thank you for being patient with me. And thank you for showing us these things, getting all kinds of accolades in the comments. Diana, would you share your comments so we can get it into the recording for those that follow?
I think she ended up taking a phone call.
Oh, okay. Okay, then where did I find it? I liked. Okay.
Diana said RFD means rural free delivery. I was in a RD2. It was rural route delivery number 2 for the area. Bernard just said 2 things that I think are worth repeating for RD2s and farm people like mine. What's the closest town? What's the next town? What's the township? I used all 3 of those to find my grandparents and my parents.
And they were in New Jersey and Pennsylvania?
No, it was Pennsylvania.
All Pennsylvania. Okay, got it. What Diana posted that I wanted you to know about, the Steve Morse One Step website has an aid under the Census Helps for obtaining street name changes in One Step. So it has links to cities that have had street name changes. So that may help you with that first part that Bernard talked with us about. Also, Joel has told us that he went to extra effort, not just those 50 largest cities. He went to the next level of cities and they used the maps and put in street names that, the inside street names, etc. And so that may be in some regards why Steve Morse's website with all that Joel Weintraub teamwork may be more helpful. But remember, Ancestry is dealing with that current map, and Joel Weintraub went to extreme efforts to get maps as close to 1950 as possible. Sherry, you turned on your webcam. Did you want to say something? You're muted, darling.
Nothing particular.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent job. Yeah, the Andy Griffith Show was called Mayberry RFD, Rural Free Delivery. They shortened it to RD. Yes, in Florida, you do have pine tree farms. Yeah. And Patricia, yours was not a farm, even though it was rural delivery, 5 to 6 mailboxes. And yeah, good. All right. Where are we on our time?
47.
Okay, so we're pretty good. So I want to do this. Did anybody download their images? I'm hoping you did. Okay, did you navigate through a film strip?
No.
You were able to find a specific page, and therefore there was no need for the film strip across the bottom. And I didn't do that. When I was in an enumeration district that I had to search page by page. Where's my notes? Oh, here it is. I think I'd like to demonstrate what I was looking at for those of you that didn't see it. Yeah, if you needed the film strip for one and did, and then she went directly to her name without the film strip. And that's what Mr. Mert's experience was. And Cousin Russ is like, what are you talking about, a film strip, Mert? So let me share my screen. And there we go, screen one. And I need to go through a few things here. Well, a couple of things I have prepared for you. Remember that you can search for census here at the Amazon web server, which is where everyone is downloading entire enumeration districts, if you needed to do that. Okay. This is what the page looked like, this new part. Mr. Mert got his updated page, even though I kept hitting refresh, Cousin Russ, and I couldn't get there from here. Once I found this link, I didn't even have this black background. It was white, and I only had the 2 buttons. I didn't have any of this welcome stuff. Did you all see it that way? Or was that just the way it was at 12:01 Eastern time?
That's how it was when I went there.
Okay, so we're going to go and type in an enumeration district, which is what I wanted to do in finding my grandmother at 40-29. So let me type this, because a couple of things come into play. 299, okay? We're gonna search for that. Interesting that 2 enumeration districts came up, because I thought that 40 meant it was the Seattle area. But they have one for Luzerne, Pennsylvania, and for Seattle, King County. Okay, it's 39 pages long. Okay, the next thing I knew I was looking for were images. Here's the first image. So when people say I found my person on page 1, well, to me, image 1 in this data set is the description of it. This is the portfolio control label that goes with the packet of X number of pages. 38 pages. And they did one infant. This is like a summary page. And who verified it, etc. on what date. Okay, so the next thing I had to do, and I'm sure you went all through this, but there are a few newbies here. This is Westlake Avenue, and my people were at 420 Wheeler. So I needed to go through the pages one by one, looking in this column for Wheeler. Okay. There's Westlake, and I know where they are. I know Westlake, I know Seattle well, but I still went through it page by page, but I began to see no one at home, no one at home. There's Westlake, there's 4th Avenue, so we're making a little progress. Okay. I didn't care if I looked at every single page. I can't read this word name of a street. And Ray is at the bottom, and Dexter, yeah. Holiday or something, and Dexter. So I don't know what the squiggly line here means. Oh, that's to delineate, I guess, from the enumerator.
That must be on page 71.
No, the squiggly line was between these. Let me go back one.
When I looked at the street names, there's a bunch of streets on the same. Now I don't know Seattle, but when I found multiple streets on the same page, I looked at the page number.
I think this is still the regular part.
Okay.
It's page 5.
Yep.
Okay. Dexter, Westlake, we'll get there. When you go to download these photos from this page, when they come up, well, there we go. It's taking a second. It could be my internet, Westlake. You have a choice to download. This is the 3 dots, download. And I saved my image, the whole image, at 499 by 582 pixels. And when you zoom in, you can't read it. If you do it at least this size, 1998 by 2328 pixels, that was better.
Well, and I found that on every single page, those ratios are all different. So I just got in the habit of, I always took the second from the top. I didn't even pay attention to it. I just took the second from the top.
Yeah, just do second from the top. Okay, well, we'll take an example of, and my internet's going crazy and I hope I don't get bumped. Let me tell you what I discovered. Mine was a not at home. Let's take an example zooming in here. Of course, there's one, see sheet 75. Okay, but when you scroll over, there's only 39 images. This is another place where people got stuck because they thought that page 75, anything above, like 40 through at least the page where their ancestor was on page 75 was missing. So that's not true, because 71 was the page number. This meant we need to go to 75. Let's go see what's on 39 and look up here. There's 85. So that caused me to write this post. Where is it here? I know I have it. What you are then needing to do is to look at the callback. The enumerator was initially told to go by address to each household. We're looking by name. The enumerator is thinking by street address, right? And if nobody was there, they would try to go back and then they could fill in the number, in which case 85. Here are the specific directions for what to do. And I will give it to you in the chat. Remember that even if the enumeration district had only 25 pages, let me send this to everyone, it didn't, and then your reference to something like on page 75, it doesn't mean that 26 through whatever are missing. The callback sheets could have a break. They picked a high number, didn't they, Cousin Russ? Is it 70 or is it 71? Somebody look that up.
71. 71.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, then I'm still okay. That has nothing to do with the digital image number that we were looking at back there on this film strip. Nothing to do with it. There will be a break if there's only 25 pages, and then the next pages are then labeled in this upper corner as a sheet number 85 or whatever. Well, the first one would be 71. So what do I need to do? I need to click backwards and kind of guess, well, maybe this is it, you know? Nope, that's only page 79. So you see how you have to work through these? Okay, let's try here. I mean, you could actually do the math, and I'm not. But do you get the difference? And that there will be, now I'm on page 23. Is that greater than 70? No. That means I went too far back. I don't know why. There's a 72. There's a 71. Oops, 73. I must have clicked funny. But anyway, that's how you navigate it.
The interesting thing that I saw in the Not at Home, not only did it give you the page number, but it gave you the line number.
Line number, which is this number right here.
No, it's over. It's over to the right. Find it Not at Home.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. But if we were on a page, the line numbers for entries on a page are on this side.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. Yeah, half the file size is the largest one theoretically in this case. Yes. Okay. So Bernard has shown us the difference in the two places to go look up enumeration districts. There's one major problem people have had. The other problem people have had is, what do I do? They're not home. I knew they would be missed. But then somewhere it says, go to page such and such. Do I find a not at? Oh no, we're on there we go. Okay, let me get out of here. That's page 75. In my case, I had an address, 720 Wheeler, in this same enumeration district that said they were not at home. And I'm like, okay, my grandmother worked with the school district. She was at the district level with doing things like getting boots and coats for kids and coordinating that on a whole district level, not just for school. So I figured, okay, she wasn't home when that was going on. But in looking it up and finding the 420 Wheeler in those 71 plus pages or sheet numbers, I found that the Armstrong family lived there. Now that meant a couple of things, and I would have to look at it again. I don't know if they were renting the home from my grandmother. I could find out because that's one of the questions. Not specific to Grandma Myrtle. Not everyone was asked, are you renting this from Grandma Myrtle, Dear Myrtle's grandmother on the father's side? No, it was, do they own the house or do they rent it? If they were renting, then my grandmother didn't have money yet to buy the new house that she ended up living in Long Branch. And subsequently, I knew her when she lived in Puyallup. So I don't know where the heck my grandmother is. I also didn't find her by searching for name. I didn't have any success of Mr. Mert gaily printing out 5 things he found on his ancestors. And he didn't do any enumeration district research whatsoever. So if you saw my crossouts on my enumeration district list and likely people to show up in the 1950, you'd cry. Yeah. But I did note that the site is very agile. So you're
I just
saying,
make a comment about searching.
Yeah.
One of the things on the surname searches, if you look below, they bring you up the index list and whatever the name is that you're looking for. If you look below the presentation, they tell you which row the OCR found that name on.
Yes.
Before you even open up the page.
All right, let's go do something like that. Washington, and I never used the drop-down list. I typed here, Seattle, Washington. If I use the drop-down, I only had that option of King. But if I typed in,
if I tried to type something in there, it would erase it and put something else.
Interesting.
I wasn't able to put anything in.
That was very common in Iowa.
Oh, the other thing I forgot to do was to remove elements of the search that I didn't want when I still wanted to be in the state of Washington. So let's type Seattle and see what happens. Okay, so there it is. And here are all the different enumeration districts. Okay, that comes up quickly. That's like Google search fast, isn't it? And I'm on a wireless internet connection. Okay, let's just see. You can tell I search for Myrtle. All right, and let's see what we get. And we'll see what you're talking about. They found Myrta, MYRTA. Okay.
Spelling doesn't count.
I went there. It's not her. This one looks interesting.
Scroll down
but
there.
So then here they're showing that what they found on that page. Machine learning list.
These are different enumeration districts, each one.
But look at the one at the top.
Yes.
Right there.
Okay.
There's a Myrta on line 5 and there's a Myrtle on line 11.
Okay. Myrtle Finn. Yes. But that could also, so yeah. You're helping me learn this. I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, so they bold what you were searching for, but the other thing you can quickly scan there and say, who are the neighbors?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have known who the neighbors were. Here's a Myrtle. Well, here's what I did. In the middle of this, when I was looking at this, I only saw this. I didn't pay attention to the fact that I could scroll through all of these other options. Let's see what happens if I put, see my enumeration district. Where's my book?
And while you're looking that up, one of the things I did is I went to the map and said, okay, what are the contiguous EDs? And then went to this list and said, oh, I only want that one or that one or that one.
Okay.
So.
All right. So you could, what would you say if I put my enumeration district in here and added it to the mix? And I have to click here, but it took away the name. Let's
look up at the top. Look at your look at your filter.
Okay, so we're good. Okay.
It's going to say no found.
Yep.
Now get rid of Myrtle.
Okay, put it back in now.
Yep.
That's what you're talking about.
That's what I was talking about.
It's a sequence.
Oh, even though
click the magnifier.
Click your search.
On the left.
Yeah, there
you go.
I clicked it next to.
Yes. So chances are, unless there's a spelling error, and the spelling seemed to be pretty good, fuzzy spelling. You only got one ED, but 39 pages.
Yeah. Okay.
I would go up to the top and take out Myrtle and the ED. Just leave the place and then go down and put the ED back in.
Okay. 40 dash.
Click next to that.
Okay. I would have never figured this out. Okay.
Took a lot of trial and error at 5 o'clock in the morning and then put your name back in.
Okay, now we are only looking in this one as far as it's concerned, and that's where we did Myrtle. All right, do you want me to try player? the
try
surname.
Try that.
Now press here.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so she's just not there,
Well,
which I
let's
kind of
be
know
clear.
because I went. Yeah.
What you've got is the index hasn't found it. It
Right.
doesn't mean
Well,
she
and I
isn't
know.
on one of the 39 pages.
It
Yeah,
means
but
the
I do
OCR
know-
doesn't have player in those 39 pages.
Yeah. So even my aunt is not there.
Try to
Okay.
get rid of the ED since
Well,
it's in the count.
I do know, dear. Okay, honey, I'm calling Russ dear now tonight.
You know, we're all a little sleep deprived.
I know. All right. But I know because I looked at every census page very slowly. And so I know she's not there. So that's okay. But I could just do Washington and search for her, or just do Washington and do this a little differently, looking in Long Branch.
I don't think it's going to work.
It's too rural.
No,
Yeah, you
I
need
don't
the
think it's going to be in the list.
Pull down. Yeah.
How about Puyallup?
Use the pull down.
Use the pull down.
Well, I know what county it's in, but I want to bring it down to, all right, let's do it that way. I don't know.
Yeah,
an
I'm finding
enumeration.
that if the towns aren't big enough, the search doesn't have them.
Right.
Okay. So now I have to search by Myrtle and click this.
Mm-hmm.
And up at
Oh
the
my
top, you'll
gosh.
see you have 109 that were found. One of 25 and 129. Yep.
Okay, so now I get to look through these, but this is a lot easier than trying to put microfilm up on a
Yeah,
microfilm
but
reader, isn't it?
scroll down a little bit. You
Okay.
look at your right hand scroll bar. You got a bunch of pages that you can see, and take a look at what the AI said. There's
Mhm.
Myrtle, and stop a second. But if you go back, Myrtle's on line 5. That's just the first name. Look at the number 4.
It's
on
not-
the line number 4 in the
Mhm.
text, not the screen. This is a trick that I learned.
Okay.
You'll see that there's a surname there. Now look at line 4, and you'll see the surname.
Okay. So this I can look at then
Mhm.
instead
Yeah,
of letting
mhm.
every one of these load.
Now,
Mhm.
now carefully, slowly go down and see the bolded Myrtle. And you may have to see what the surname is, and you may have to go back a couple people or up a couple of lines. I'm not saying that you're going to find what you're looking for. I'm just saying, here's how I looked at this map and the results. And I've been doing
I was
good.
pleased.
Yeah, well, and this just shows us that the enumerators followed the instructions, right? It was surname, comma, head of household, and then everyone that followed in the right order.
And there was a
Okay.
specific order that that was in the manual. You go by the same surname. In other words, the head of household, a spouse, the children in order by birth date. And I found that out of whack a couple times. And then other members of the house, like one I had was 2 cousins and a brother-in-law in the same household, but they were in a specific order, so I could see the relationships other than just the head of household and the wife, son, daughter. So,
Okay, so this is making sense too, that when I'm looking at this, I need to account for the fact that this might be a misinterpretation of the handwriting, and it could be Severinsen, possibly.
now you want to see the image that's there.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure it isn't, but I'm getting the point of what you're saying. There are line errors. Also, if I recognize that she was in her sister-in-law's house, no, on on that Severinsen side, I wouldn't be surprised if it put the first and last name of her not husband, you know. And I don't know if she's a player or a Severinsen yet. I know my grandfather died in 1947.
This is the difference between what you talked about earlier and seeing the film strip. I didn't see the film strip because I was looking at it in this view. That's what you're saying. And I found it very easy as opposed to the film strip. I used the film strip several times, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that once I played around with the website a couple of times, I found looking at that view as opposed to the film strip view worked easier for me to find what I was looking for.
I also thought it was really interesting that the AI, if the enumerator printed all capital letters, that's why they're in all caps in this index.
Correct.
I've got some where they printed, but the first letter and the second letter were capital, and then the next two were lowercase, and then the next one was capital, and that's exactly the way it is in the index.
Okay.
Because it was OCR.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally. Okay. Well, it is pretty amazing. And I have at least.
The only complaint that I have, and this is very minor, and I know how to fix it, is the street name. I want to be able to rotate that image. I downloaded, I would have to do something to that image so I could rotate.
I did accidentally
rotate. You can do it here. Here's the tools right here, Russ.
Right there, those tools.
I did it by accident.
That may be, yes, and I remember seeing that, and I did not use it, but there was and I didn't need it too many times because I already knew what the address was because, as Bernard told us, get the address.
Yeah.
Well, and then I did a little bit of what Diana did is this morning I called Craig's cousin and I said, okay, I can't find the girls because my mother-in-law's sisters lived in Des Moines. They shared an apartment. And I called the remaining aunt and she said, oh, they lived on 24th Street. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? They lived over by Drake University. And so I had pages of not at home, not available, no one found.
Of course, they were all in school.
Well, or it was all working people right there. These were people young adults that were all working, for the state, or they were working somewhere in town. And so it was just clearly they came during the day because it was like everybody was gone.
Yeah.
I had a similar situation where it was an apartment building with a lot of people, and there was no not at home listed. But I found the family I was looking for on page 76. There was not at home where they should have been. I knew where they should have been. The street's like 2 blocks long, so I didn't. I went through all the images, but I couldn't search it. I couldn't find it. The house, there was no not at homes. There's a couple, but not where I expected it to. But I found the family on page 76.
All right. The small town because the not at homes, she said such and such a family not at home. She knew who lived there.
That well. Now Sarah had a question that says when line numbers are missing, what does that mean in the AI? So you're saying if they can't see this side of it,
they haven't connected the dots. I've seen it a couple times. Yeah.
I took it to mean that all those errors are on the same line.
Have you got a screen sample of an enumeration district where I can pull it up, or do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I can share your screen and show you what I'm looking at right now, which is
okay. Good. You may share.
And while you're bringing that up, I found one page that was folded, and there are some rows that people will never find their people.
Come on.
And that happened when they microfilmed, they didn't flatten it.
That's my assumption.
Okay, this is Diana sharing, but I think that Sarah was going to share.
Let me try explaining it without sharing my screen.
Okay, well then let's stop screen sharing for a minute, Diana.
Okay.
Okay.
This is me that's missing in the AI. And I transcribed the page, and I was just searching again for my father's name, first name, Robert, and it captured another Robert on our block.
Yes.
And so and I just transcribed all these names. So I'm thinking, well, I wonder how they called me. And we're going along through my family. So they have my mother, Mary Lou, is Manny L. And then my sister, Mary Elizabeth, is Manny C.
Yes.
And then it should be me, but it goes to my next door neighbor. The line numbers are off.
Okay. So did they skip you?
In the AI, they skipped me, but I was right. I was right there.
In this part down below, all this stuff they skipped you.
All the stuff down below, it skipped me. And
I've got some examples where the row numbers aren't there, and if you scroll back out, the page was scanned crooked. And I'm wondering if the row number is physical location in the space.
Yeah. All right.
It doesn't matter.
I think Joel said something about if the pages were crooked, then it would misread them.
Yeah, I could see how it could skip, because it would think you're on a different line, or that other person was up right underneath your sibling.
When we talk about how to report stuff, we need to talk about that specifically, because we should be able to give feedback that an image was crooked and didn't get AI'd correctly.
So if you do the corrections at the NARA site, it's not going to change what shows up here. What you add will be in addition to what's showing up here. And I better share my screen. Oh, I always forget to do that. Okay, so what we're talking about is these machine extracted names. They're skipping you. It should be in the right order. And you're saying, maybe I should look at all my Myrtles on all these pages, since I'm so desperate to find her. And the two locations I'm looking for in are Puyallup and Long Branch that are in the county. Because maybe it's doing what it's doing for Sarah, in that the next line after her older, was it a brother or sister?
It's my older sister.
Yeah. So the next line should have then been Sarah, but it skips her in this lower AI, not the image itself. I thought you were talking the image itself. And
I've got the image up now. Does anyone want to see it, or am I beating a dead horse?
No, I think this is really good. So,
let's see. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay. And that office looks familiar.
Yes, you've seen those books before, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Okay.
Can you see this one now right here? Where I'm right?
And look at the bottom. I think the tip on this is the numbers are not in sequence. And that's kind of the tip, that it doesn't have the right numbering, but the names are in the right order.
Okay, so that informs me that I need to be more careful when I'm looking at that machine language typing stuff that's underneath, and not discount, particularly when numbers are skipping around like 30 and 2 and 3, and
they're missing
5.
altogether. Yeah, I've got pages where there's just a dot.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And there's 2 19s. There's one for Jean C and another one for Susan C. Oh, there's a third one and a fourth one.
Yeah.
And a fifth one on the next line. So that one is messed up. Wow.
It was just all screwy on it. But it didn't capture, it captured the Robert up at the top, but it didn't capture my father. It just left him out. He was also a Robert. If you look right here, here's Robert. And I've noticed quite a few, see that R?
Yeah.
In this particular place, that R is getting indexed as Gobbert.
Oh, okay.
But I can see why. It's that same old handwriting thing. But I would never think to search for Gobbert.
No, and if it were Soundex, remember when we had to look things up by Soundex, and you did the first letter, like if it was Robert, if that was the last name, it'd be R and then a series of numbers, and you'd be in totally the wrong part because you'd say G.
The
Sarah,
lesson
would
that
you scroll out so that you can see the whole edges of the page in that
Yeah, hold
image
on one
there?
second, let me make this bigger.
This is so helpful.
the
Wow.
lesson for me here is that like we all do, I want to see the original, get the hint about the AI transcription, but then go back and look at the image for those questionable entries.
Mm-hmm.
Is that scrolling better for the person who asked the question?
No, but just in the image, just go ahead and scroll really small so we can see the edges of the pages.
Of both sides?
I just up in the corner. I just want to see if the page is in there straight.
Oh, I don't know how to get this all.
You're doing it. You're doing it.
You're doing it. Just keep going.
Keep doing it. Make it really tiny.
Keep going so we can see the whole page.
Your mouse.
So yep. Oh, okay. Let me get you more screen here.
Oh, there we go. See, there's extra pages at the top. And I think I've worked with OCR enough. Sometimes they pre-designated a space in the image that says, this is where row 1 is.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think that what we're running into is this isn't aligned quite correctly. And so the AI says, oh, I'm not sure where I'm at.
I mean, it looks beautiful, but the AI didn't pick it up right. So for whatever reason, yeah. Oh, thanks so much for being here, Sarah, because every one of these examples is helping the next person that views this.
Yeah, and I've run into that today where there were some of them, there were no numbers. It was just a dot. But when I started looking at it, we're in the right order, row by row.
Yes.
So it was easy to, thankfully they aren't 50 rows long.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm getting this. So how's our time? Okay. We said we'd meet at least for an hour every night. Are there any earth-shattering questions that we need to settle before we go that might help somebody make progress?
And as a reminder, in one of the questions earlier, we will cover where to report this stuff either tomorrow or the next day. The next couple of days, we will talk about that specifically.
Yeah, we're also planning to discuss the process. Well, can you give them the link to your really cool family tree maker search, where you kept bringing the image back over your family tree maker program so we could see what you did? Cousin Russ did a video without even having had his morning coffee. And he was just exploring for the very first time the 1950 census. And he learned some really cool things. It's only about 20 minutes long. And I always listen to everything at about double speed. Let's see.
Working on it.
Thank you so much. That was excellent work. Because I subscribe to Cousin Russ's channel, I get this notification because I told it to tell me every time he does something. Okay, and we'll go to Cousin Russ. Oh, I'm sorry, trying so hard. I want to show you, once you're there on his channel, you not only click this subscribe button, and you can learn stuff from him, even if you don't use Family Tree Maker. You can, I learned stuff from Cousin Russ left and right. But
well, and I think you've got a good picture there, Myrtle, because if you do the notify all, then up in the top is where the notices are.
Yep, I'm getting there.
Great.
That's exactly it. But by default, when you hit subscribe, it gives you just the bell, which means you can personalize it, but for heaven's sakes, you want all that Cousin Russ has to do. And you may have noticed he has been doing a lot of office hours where it's a specific thing, routine reports, need a hint, web search. Here's the most recent one, the 1950 census. Yes, he's talking about Family Tree Maker, but he's also talking about citing. And then, he has a document. He deals with citing where he got that document. And then he deals with extracting information going all the way across on one person. And what was the occupation you found?
Tax collector.
He was the tax collector in that the borough. And somebody else, who was it that said the mom was this enumerator? Was that you, Diana?
Gary's grandmother.
Yeah.
And she listed her occupation as census enumerator.
Yep. That is so cool. So, you know, Cousin Russ has just taken off. He speaks internationally now. And you and I that have had him as part of our whole series. I can't say enough about him. Let me put it that way. But anyway, the next part, which Sherry was bringing up, was that this is where the notification bell is. So if you were also going to click there, you would see what's coming up next or what is happening, what you've received a notification for. Now I've customized mine so that it comes on my phone. That's how I catch you, Cousin Russ. I'm usually just getting in or out of the car to look at another house. And then you do something brilliant on YouTube and I have to say to Mr. Myrt, take a minute. I got to send this to my group so people can find out about it.
You will notice that we have not talked about citations tonight. That will probably take the evening. So we have not specifically talked about that. And Maria just reminded us that Elizabeth Show Mills had a comment this morning. So we will talk about that specifically.
Yeah, I did already cross-post it over here in Dear Myrtle's Facebook group. Also knew about 6 hours ago, MyHeritage put all their images up. They downloaded the 164.
Okay, but I went over and looked. Yeah, I went over and looked at their site. It's just page 1 of each enumeration district.
Seriously,
you can't browse.
That was my experience, and I'm waiting to see what they
and it says in their list on the site, it says 228,797 records describing 6.15 million images.
Okay, so it was a misleading thing when I received a blast from their chief genealogy officer, Daniel Horowitz. So it was the description, but not the actual images themselves. I was going to say, I couldn't figure out how Gilad pushed his team to get all 167 terabytes so quickly. All right, I should amend that. But, okay, there's that. There's this. What was the other thing? Okay, we got that. Okay. One thing I'd like you to do, and I've got to find it in my own thing. Apparently I'm back. Did you miss me? I don't know what I said in the meantime. So they did not publish the 1950 census yet. Okay, that makes me a little concerned. So I'm going to delete this post because it's misleading.
Sarah just said that Ancestry has about 15 states in the drop-down list. I haven't been notified, but I've been on here for an hour, so I may have missed it.
Thank you, Sarah. I am aware of it from the family search side. Let me go to family search, log in, because I created a group for us to enumerate together, not enumerate. Silly me. Under here, under my family groups, I created a CensusGenie indexing group. Okay, so far we have 14 members who are willing to index with me. Cousin Russ and I are both administrators. And I sent a message to the group earlier that was from Janelle, who is our upline. And this is what she told us at about 4:45 my time. And it took me this long to get it up there. They've been working with Ancestry since 10 p.m. last night. And are preparing the first handful of states for name review. That's what we're doing. We're doing, well, more than name review. We're looking at every field, but name review. Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, Florida, Arizona. I don't know why those states came up first. I guess we could call one of our friends and find out why. We knew it wouldn't be in alphabetical order, but I expected it to be Rhode Island. It must just be where it is over on the Amazon web servers and which ones they click to download. And they may remember, hun, you're wiggling the table, dear.
It
Thank
may have
you.
been on the same microfilm at one time.
You never know. Yes, my group is open, and we're more than happy to have you. Cousin Russ, can you put that link up? I think I had it initially. I don't, oh, there we are. Let me go back. I have to find the link to it or how to invite you. It's so new, this thing, that I don't know how to do it. I don't know how I gave you the link, Cousin Russ. Oh, invite member. It's right there. Okay, here's the link. Copy it. This is DearMYRTLE's or CensusGenie, 1950 family search indexing. And remember that it's using Ancestry's AI. Okay. But they recognized, rather than sending this to India, why not partner with Family Search? There's the link, everybody, so you can join. And then I have to approve you each. In fact, the first time I was so new at this, I said, Cousin Russ, join this group. And he did, and it was on the list. And then I declined because they hit the wrong button. So it's not that big of a deal. I've got to learn how to do it. Anyway, that's how you may join this group. Your name will appear above the list of members. I'll get a notice on my phone. Yeah, Maria's in it. Patricia's there. These are the folks that are there so far. I do appreciate it. And I have the ability to give you that a message every now and then. So the other thing we need to be aware of is the Facebook group for the 1950 community. Here we are. Community project is the overarching project where I found that I could set up a group. They said we had to be willing to share our data back with the folks at Family Search, little challenges, our statistics, etc. So this is so public that anyone on or off Facebook can see what's posted in this group. Let me share the group with you. Okay, we'll do it this way. So here's where we will post our problems. If we need help with people, you know, deciphering handwriting or something like that. We don't want to do it back here in this family group because there's an audit. It's called a family group in DearMYRTLE's CensusGenie because it ends up putting anything you upload in the way of a picture under memories for you. And you don't want all that there. This is where on Facebook, we discuss, where's that link? It was just there. There it is. Not Cousin Russ. Anything else before we go?
And we have no questions on the YouTube side.
Okay.
We've been
Thank
posting
you.
links over there as well.
Thank you for doing that, Russ. That's wonderful. I think it's been a really great evening. The things that we've been able to talk about and help each other with. Thanks for helping me figure out what the heck you're talking about by actually demonstrating it. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your screen so we could see what you were talking about when the line numbers were messed up below where the image would show up. Thank you. Great job, everyone. And nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Thank you to everybody, especially Melinda over on the YouTube side, Cousin Russ here and there. It's been wonderful. And Bernard, thank you for your presentation as well. Very insightful that you couldn't quite zoom in enough to see the actual house number. All right. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That